Good evening, everyone. This is the City Council work session scheduled for February 8th, 2022. And let's have our clerk take the roll, please.
Councilmember Henry?
Here.
Councilmember Hulse?
Here.
Councilmember Curot? Councilmember Matthews?
Here.
Councilmember Wilden?
Here.
Vice Mayor Naren?
Here.
Mayor Linsky?
Here, thank you. All right, items for discussion, consideration, and possible direction to staff. We have just two items this evening. And first up is utility assessment presentation. Mr. Whitmer.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It gives me great pleasure to finally bring to you the results of the utility audit that has been underway for quite some time now. As most of you may recall, we initiated the utility audit probably right at the onset of COVID, and that brought everything to a screeching halt. The consulting firm that was awarded the contract was Kroll Engineering. They were all sent home. So it's been a long time in coming, but I think you'll be entertained as well as pleased to see the results of the utility audit. Tonight, I've got Jim Detmer from Kroll Engineering who will be actually making the presentation. And with that, be happy to turn it over to Jim.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. As Tom said, my name is Jim Detmer. I'm with Carollo Engineers. I work in our Tucson office.
Okay.
And beginning in March of 2020, we started the utility assessment, the assessment of the utilities department for the city of Cottonwood. And we have a small presentation for you tonight. I want to give you a quick overview of what the assessment was and how we approached it. First, it was an assessment that was performed on your water utilities that include potable water and your wastewater and reclaimed water system, which we looked at that as kind of a combined utility. It included a review of your condition of your facilities, the effectiveness of your management, compliance history, and your staffing levels, and how your staff is compensated. Just a real quick overview of your systems. This is your water utility. It includes 6 water service areas, and I say 6 because 5 of them, well, they were all individual water companies that were brought together. 5 of them are connected, and 1 is kind of a remote facility or service area. You serve a population of about 35,000, and in 2021, you served about 2.6 million gallons a day, and a maximum demand of about 3.6 million gallons per day. The utility has 24 wells, a combined production capacity of about twice what your maximum day is. And unfortunately, you were blessed with a groundwater aquifer that has some arsenic in it, so 18 of those facilities have arsenic treatment on site. There are also 17 storage tanks with a combined capacity of about 4.4 million gallons, which is adequate for what you have. You should have your maximum day demand plus some buffer in it. So you're from a facility standpoint, you're in good shape.
Okay.
Wastewater utility, you have 2 treatment facilities, the Mingus plant and the Riverfront plant, and 5 lift stations, serving a population of about 12,500. And again, in 2020, your average flow is about 1 million gallons per day, and your maximum day, or excuse me, average day of your maximum month was just a little over that of 1.1. We have a total treatment capacity of about 18 million gallons a day, and both plants are permitted to produce Class A plus effluent, but your Riverfront plant, due to some design issues, is not able to consistently meet those standards. And Class A plus basically is the highest grade of recycled water that you can have in the state of Arizona. It includes denitrification as well as meeting certain turbidity and pH standards. Going to the method here that we used as a template basically the EPA Sanitary survey guidance, and it's generally geared towards water utilities, potable water utilities, and it provides you a comprehensive and objective assessment and a set of criteria to look at your whole utility. We adapted it for use as a wastewater utility or assessment also. So these are the things that we touched on, and you'll see that the top three items are the same for both the water and wastewater utility. And they focus on your management and operations, making sure your operators are up to date on their licensing, and that you're keeping up to date with your monitoring and reporting to ADEQ. From there, it got a little different. Distribution system is analogous to the collection system in the wastewater utility. It's basically your pipelines. Source water for potable water, your treatment facilities, which in this case is primarily your arsenic treatment, storage tanks, and pumping facilities. And on the wastewater side, we also looked at treatment, which is a big part of your wastewater facility, and design that went into them, and pumping facilities and controls. So we developed collaboratively with your utility staff, more than just Tom, but also your operators and other folks, to come up with a scoring system that was objective and was able to be applied uniformly throughout the facility. That included site visits to all of your 24 well sites and the 2 wastewater plants and the 5 lift stations, a review of your records, reporting, compliance, all those types of things, and also interviews on things that we couldn't extract from records or site visits. So the well sites are very similar to each other. Obviously, they all have a well. Most have storage tanks, or they pump to another storage tank nearby. And the picture you see in the center actually shows you the 2 types of storage tanks you might have, which the one closest to us is a bolted steel tank. Basically, it arrives at the facility in pieces like you can see there. And all those little seams are bolted by hundreds of tiny little bolts, and they're gasketed so it doesn't leak. The one in the back is a welded steel tank, and it also arrives in panels like that, but they're welded together in the field. They're all coated, they all have overflows, they all have vents, and one of the things you look at is to make sure your vents and overflows have bug screens in them so you don't get bugs or mice or anything else in your potable water. And then they all have booster pumps, which don't show up real well, but it's a booster station on the right there. In addition, you also have surge tanks, which are in your system. They're there to keep from having large pressure swings, I'll call it, in your system. If you, for some reason, have a sudden change in the flow of a pipe or something, you can get pressure surges, and the surge tank is there to act as kind of a shock absorber. Many of your sites have generators. They're there in case you lose power for some reason, and you're able to continue operating your wells and your pumps. And then, of course, we mentioned the arsenic treatment. The assessment method we took for the water system, all the items we looked at before, and we assigned scoring values to them. The upper ones you see are common for all the different categories. The ones below where it says water supply facility, we actually did a scoring sheet for each one of the well sites. And what you would see as your final score is a composite of all those well sites. So each one has an individual score, but you also have a combined score that gives you an idea of the overall health of your utility. Those were the possible points we had available for the scoring. And there's a little, the inset there shows you kind of the different categories. The number on the left, which is kind of hard to read, is the number of points available, and then the number on the right is the actual score. Similarly, for your wastewater facilities, they're all unique, and so we scored them a little differently. You have the Mingus plant, which is an older plant, has been operating for a long time. It was converted in 2000 to its current process. You have the Riverfront plant that was constructed more recently, and is a smaller plant, but it's more it's more modern, I'll call it. And then you have the lift stations. There were 5 of those, and they generally consist of a wet well, which is where your water is collected, your raw sewage, and there are pumps down in the bottom of the wet well, and they pump back up to the Mingus plant. The building you see in the back houses a generator, and each one of your lift stations has a generator in case there's a power failure. You can kind of live without water pumping for a while, but you really can't live very long without your wastewater being pumped because people just don't shut off the flow cooperatively. So since they're all a little different, we did individual scoring for each of them. And again, the lift stations is a composite. And then we have the scoring for the 2 wastewater treatment plants. So what does it mean? Well, kind of like A through D here, or A through F, 90 to 100% is outstanding, 75 to 89 is satisfactory, 60 to 74, you need to think about some things, but still getting by, it's kind of a C, and below 60 is not acceptable. So here are some of the final scores. This is for the water system. You can see that your overall score, which is in the right-hand column, were very good for all of your items except for finance. And we'll talk about that a little bit. There were 2 items that went into the finance score that I think have since been rectified. One is the CIP. At the time we started this, the city didn't have a CIP for the water utilities. And the staffing compensation was fairly far below average. So here's a summary of what we found. We've developed a CIP plan, and that improves your financial score. You have a water quality plan. Your well sites are generally in good condition. Not all of them have backup power, but you have initiated a program to provide it to all of them. Your disinfection and arsenic treatment systems are meeting treatment goals and are well maintained. And your storage tanks are generally in good condition, although some of the bolted steel tanks had some leakage and some evidence of minor leaks. And we are suggesting inspection and possible rehabilitation of some of those tanks. On Mingus, again, pretty good scores except for finance for the same reasons we looked at before. Riverfront, same thing on finance, but one of the issues we had was facility design and maintenance, and I'll explain that on the next slide. But overall, you had a pretty good score for the facility system-wide. And same thing with the lift stations. And we only had 2 categories on the lift stations because the management is covered in the other the wastewater facilities. So the summary is you've developed a CIP plan, again, that improves the financial score, and also you worked on compensation. You have a water quality plan, you have emergency plans. There are some processes at the Mingus plant that do not have redundancy. Kind of complicates maintenance. If you need to do some repairs, you have to think about pump arounds possibly in some instances. It was constructed in 1988 and modified in 2000, so some of the processes are aging and will require some rehabilitation. Riverfront is having difficulty producing Class A+ water because there were some design deficiencies. I understand there were some budget issues when the plant was constructed, and as a result, the plant doesn't operate exactly as you would expect it to. There are also some biological issues also with some little bugs that are growing in there that shouldn't be. And the lift stations are in good condition, but they're also aging, and some of them will need some rehab soon. Talk about staffing metrics. We looked at 2 things, your staffing levels and salaries, and keep in mind a lot of this stuff was based on 2019 levels. We looked at two different approaches here. As far as staffing levels, we looked at a 2017 American Water Works Association benchmarking report. And for compensation, we looked at a nationwide survey that was done by AWW in 2019 for medium-sized water and wastewater utilities. We also looked at some of your neighbors within the state. Some of them are more distant neighbors. But we looked at the city of Flagstaff, who service both water and wastewater. They have a service area population of about 75,000. Town of Marana Water Utility, who also has water and wastewater, they have a service area population of 16,000 for water and about 9,000 for wastewater. And Marana is kind of going through a growth spurt. They're one of the largest growing towns in the state right now. So when we see some of the comparison numbers a little further back here that might jump out a little bit at you. And we talked to the Metropolitan Domestic Water Improvement District in the Tucson area. They're water only, and they have a service area population of about 54,000, but their system is similar to yours in that it's a bunch of private water companies that were brought together, and they also have some remote service areas also. So what did we come up with? Well, what we found is that compared to, this is based on the staffing benchmarking levels. For water systems, you would expect to have, for a population of your size, of about 21 people, and you have about 18, or you had about 18 when we did this survey. Wastewater system, however, you would expect to have about 12, and you have about half of that. So overall, you're probably at about 2/3 of what your staffing level would be compared to other utilities across the country. Comparing that to the in-state utilities, again, you're lower in total numbers than all of the others. So we wanted to compare that to population served. So what we saw is that population served per total staff in Cottonwood is about 1,300 people. For Metro Water, that's about 1,000. For Flagstaff, that's about 900, close to 1,000 also. Marana Water, I mentioned, is growing, so they're looking ahead. So their population hasn't quite caught up with their staffing level yet. And we looked at just the operations staff. Those are the people that you're going to have out in the field doing the work. And again, we looked at water and wastewater individually. Flagstaff and wastewater, actually, they serve a lot more people per staff member. And you're about the same as Marana Water is. In water, however, you're serving almost 3,000 people per staff member, compared to 2,000, 1,000, and 3,000 for the other utilities. So we looked at compensation. I'm not going to go through all the numbers here, and keep in mind these are 2019 levels. But here what we did was we kind of compared for the water system. You can see I call it the over and under and the average. Your average operator salary was about $40,000 compared to Metro, which was paying about $56,000, and Marana at about $54,000, and Flagstaff was about $48,000. Wastewater side, your average salary was about $37,000. In Marana, it was $56,000, and Flagstaff again about $48,000. And Metro is not on here because they're not a wastewater utility. So our conclusion there is your staffing levels at the time were about 30% below the national averages, and similar to Metro Water and Flagstaff. Again, Marana is kind of a funny one because of these are the staffing levels. Because they're growing so quickly, they're looking at the future. Your pay structure varied from about 52 to almost right at national averages, depending on the different classifications. And your average pay for operators was somewhere between 70 and 80% of what we saw for other utilities in Arizona. And that's the summary of their assessment. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them now.
Any questions for Mr. Detmer? Go ahead, please.
You mentioned that not all of the pumps have generators, and that you've got a plan working to fix that. Briefly tell me a little bit about what that means.
Well, what it means is that some of your wells, and you got to think of a system as a whole too, because it's a network. So that if you lose a well or a booster station, you have other wells that also serve that same service area. So it's not detrimental that you don't have them, but it's always good insurance to have them as backups.
Is that something in the budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Detmer?
I wasn't sure. Are you planning to give a presentation on the other attachment, the utility audit, SIP and recommendations?
This was it, ma'am. We attached that for your guys' review. If there was questions from that, this would be a great time.
I just had one. Was that the entire document? Because it's just chapter 7 and 8, and then it references an appendix that we don't have. So is there a way to access the entire document?
Mayor, Councilmember, yes, I have it. It was not reproducible in mass, so I can check it out to each of you. The two of the appendix are confidential because they're locations and infrastructure data that's not public, but we can get it to individual council members. But we have a couple. We have a couple, and I can check that out to council members. But they're
The recommendations are that long.
no. The appendixes. The appendixes is the infrastructure maps and stuff like that. That's confidential. The recommendations are those two chapters. Those are that's the total recommendations. The rest is either background or maps or diagrams and those kinds of things. How it gets there, it is.
This is the final report here, and a lot of what it is your scoring sheets for the individual.
I was about to need a paper bag.
But those two, if I can, Mayor, those two chapters are the recommendations and the findings. That I thought that was the meat of the survey, but they did a thorough job, as you can see, mapping and identifying and helping us out with everything.
And regarding the riverfront wastewater facility, you mentioned there were some just inefficiencies in the design, and I know this is something that Mr. Whitmer's been looking at, but did you have any recommendations about that specifically, or?
We didn't get into, we were doing a big overall look at the thing. I think one of our recommendations, though, was to do a focus study on both of the wastewater plants to identify specific improvements that could help.
Okay. I was hoping you might have come across something really simple, like we forgot to plug in one of the things all of a sudden.
Yeah, you got a blown neuter valve.
Mr. Mayor, if we can, Tom can come up. We and talk about some of the things we've done since this report and our current plan to address some of those inefficiencies that we're working on. If you'd like to put at ease, we do have a plan to address these deficiencies. If you'd like, Mr. Whitmer, to
I'd like
address
to know,
that.
Council, does that interest you to know? Okay. Please.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we've been diligently trying to assess, at least when we're talking about riverfront, that is, assess exactly what the problem is. And one of the things that we identified in our assessment is that when they originally designed the plant and presented it to council, it was presented as being this far-reaching, advanced, most technically advanced wastewater treatment plant ever to be designed. Unfortunately, it was also presented that it was only going to cost you $8 million. And as you all know, that went from 8 to 10 to 12 to 13 and beyond. And as it got higher and higher, they started eliminating components of that plant. For instance, we had a primary and a secondary filtration system. Well, we immediately ripped one of the filtration systems out saying, well, we don't need that. And then when it got a little higher, they said, oh, well, we'll change the primary one out. We'll change it with this one that we can just get off the shelf for a lot cheaper. Well, that type of filtration system was never designed for wastewater treatment. Those are the types of things that were happening throughout that process. And as a result of that, we currently cannot consistently produce A+ quality water. So we're in the process of identifying solutions to that, and I think we've got some. We did run into some other issues along the way when the plant became infected with bryozoa. Bryozoa produce what's known as a statoblast, and the statoblasts are impervious to ultraviolet light, ultraviolet rays, which is used to disinfect your treated effluent. So it actually shields the E. coli. So one day you might have a non-detect on your E. coli, and the next day you may have an exceedance of 20 or more. It's just up and down and constantly doing that. So yes, we're in the process of identifying that. We have got that in the budget for this upcoming year to look at doing some modifications to that plant, hopefully. As far as Mingus is concerned, Mingus is an amazing plant that is still operating in my estimate. It just chugs along and keeps producing A+ quality water, and I'm grateful, and I knock on wood every day I say that, because we do not have the ability to actually do any kind of maintenance on that plant. When it was designed, it was never designed with the intent of actually being able to take down components and keep the plant operating. And unfortunately, with wastewater, you can't just ask everybody to quit flushing their toilets every day and go outside. That just doesn't fly. So we're in the process right now. We've got 90% completed plans on what it's going to take to actually go out there and construct a swing basin and a potential additional clarifier, which will allow us to actually take down the different digesters one at a time to actually get in and actually do maintenance on them. We're kind of afraid of what we're actually going to find once we do that, but that's something that's definitely necessary and needed, and we've got that in the budget as well that we're working on.
Great.
So those are some of the key components that we're doing with regards to wastewater.
Great.
Mr. Mayor, if I can add, so we currently plan to use ARPA funds. That's what we'll be requesting from council for the for the Mingus plant. Not in addition to the bypass, there's other parts of it that need to be upgraded, fixed, and those kinds of things. And then in the budget process, we'll be asking for the new parts and the new pieces to the riverfront plant to get that up and running. It's one of those things that we're still in the find it and break it and fix it stage, where you fix one thing and something else happens. That those bugs, the statoblasts, really threw us back for a while, but that's been addressed and fixed, and we have a system in place to keep that under control now. Once we get the sand filter system fixed and addressed, we have high hopes.
Okay.
We've actually got some really cool things underway in both water and wastewater. You asked about the generators. You would think that every well site should have a generator on it, and that's our goal to ultimately get there. Fortunately, we've got enough redundancy in our system that if we do lose one well, we typically or generally have a backup that will kick in and be able to supply that area that was knocked out by that well going down if it didn't have a generator. We do have generators at some of our larger well sites, but we're looking, we've got 2 in the budget for this upcoming year, and we've got a couple extra coming up in years down the road as well. So eventually we will have generators at all sites. At our lift stations, we have generators at all lift stations because it only takes 20 minutes before we start running raw sewage down the road. And that's something we don't ever want to do if we don't have to. We have gone in this year, we've actually, for the first time, we did a sonic evaluation of our entire sewer system, our collection system. Where we actually send sound waves down there, and it can actually detect blockages in our sewer system. We also were able to GPS every bit of that entire system now and locate, amazingly, a number of sewer manholes that we never knew existed. So that was kind of nice, and we'll have to do this someday for all of you guys. If you want to actually pretend you're walking in a sewer, we now have a 3D Oculus system where we've scanned it and you actually feel like you're in the sewer and playing with the bugs and rats and cockroaches and the fun things. So those are kind of cool things that we're doing as well, which people in wastewater kind of get a kick out of. Most people think it's yuck. Anyways.
Next retreat, maybe, virtual headsets, and we could all, I like that. That's good.
That's what it is. I mean, you're actually in the sewer, and you can see the centipedes walking out to you and saying, hi.
Don't call me.
It's actually pretty cool.
All right. So then, my only other concern is the staffing compensation, and what's the plan to address that?
So we have made adjustments. Council approved the market study last year, made several adjustments. We are adding people as needed appropriately. For example, I noticed, I had missed it, at 0 engineers. We hired an engineer, Russell, last year. I think it's almost been a year now. So he's one of our utility engineers. So we're adding positions. You guys authorized a GPS position last year, a GIS position last year. So we're adding positions as needed. You reclassified the deputy position. We're having a heck of a time filling it, but we're coming to council on an as-needed basis to address those deficiencies.
Okay.
A bigger concern is just hiring people the vacancies we have open right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that was accounted for in there as far as numbers, but, we're down, like, I've got 2 members with COVID right now that are underway, or down with COVID, and I'm down to 3 operators, and the one that is kind of the acting in charge has only got 1 year of experience under his belt, so it's difficult.
Yeah.
But we're doing great.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, council? No? Okay. Mr. Detmer, thanks for making the trip up. I hope you stick around and enjoy what we have to offer here in Cottonwood. So.
He's got on the Tucson, so he's going to take off.
Darn. All right. Okay. Well, let's move on then to the second item, which is presentation of city departmental accomplishments for fiscal year 2022.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Kirsten Lennon, the Financial Services Director, and tonight we're going to go over our fiscal year 2022 accomplishments. The year's not over yet. These are anticipated accomplishments. You will find some things in here, and I had several department heads behind me say, make sure that you tell them they will be completed. They're not complete yet. So a few years ago, we started this process of having the finance department present the accomplishments and the goals at a later session, where we, after the strategic retreat, started working on our goals so that we knew what direction to go in. So we did receive the Distinguished Budget Award for the 21 budget. And then we are going to put in for the 22, which is the budget we're currently in. So hopefully we'll receive that. And I think I have stated before, I hope you've all gone out and looked at the budget that's on the website. We put a lot of energy and effort into making that budget document more user-friendly, easier to look at, not just numbers and spreadsheets. And I thank Helen Bartels, who's our budget analyst, for putting in countless hours making that budget look beautiful. So we're going to go over the we went over the strategic plan, and that's listed in here as well. And now I'm going to go over the departmental accomplishments for fiscal year 22. And every slide has an org chart that kind of doesn't show you the number of employees, but it does show you the structure of that department. So last year, in 2020, you all met and had your strategic retreat, and you came up with the strategic plan that was implemented for fiscal year 22 and 23. It's on the website. And we, as staff, went through and created a more thorough and added goals that were going to be part of the strategic plan. And so this year and last year, we asked staff to make sure that their goals and accomplishments were directed by the strategic plan and met those strategic initiatives. So we'll start with the council's budget. On this slide, you can see that there's the goals that were set for fiscal year 22, and that's how it looks in the budget. That's why I kind of threw them up there, so you can kind of see how we're trying to make it a little bit better. We put symbols with every strategic initiative so that when you're looking through the budget, you can associate that strategic initiative by the symbol to what they're doing as an accomplishment or as a goal. So one of your accomplishments was that the strategic plan was implemented. You increased reserves from 16.66% to 25% of revenues in the fiscal year 22 budget, which was also part of the strategic goals. You bonded the unfunded liability and had net present value savings of approximately $9.6 million for public safety personnel retirement in fiscal year 20, well, at the end of 21, beginning of 22. And then we moved investments to Foothills Bank so that we were investing locally. And those were all part of the strategic plan. The administrative department. I had a lot of fun trying to find pictures of people because I think it's really boring just to look at a whole bunch of words on slides. Some people were not thrilled with my picture choices. And I told them, so next year I told them, if you want good pictures, send me pictures. And you'll have a nice picture for the presentation. So just to let you know. This was from the City Hall selfie day pictures that everybody took. There are a lot of those in here because those were easy pictures to find. So the administrative department hired a housing manager and implemented and worked on a down payment assistance program for Cottonwood employees and Cottonwood residents. They designed we became a designated marketing organization for Cottonwood and improved our marketing and assisted the firm in revamping the Visit Cottonwood website, which is really nice now. We acquired 635 North Main to be a future city hall, and they started the process of doing an RFP for architectural services and the build out. I have to look at Ron every now and then to see if he's going to interrupt me. And then we created new core values based on accountability and service to others. And those were sent out citywide, and they're really neat values. I think that we did a good job in getting them put together. The city clerk's office engaged citizens by organizing 2 meetings in Meet Your Neighborhood officer zones of 1 and 2, and then prepared over 40 council packets and expanded the community garden to its full potential of 53 plots and leased 100% of the plots in 21. The finance department developed a capital replacement program and funded it at 2.75% of the budgeted revenues for fiscal year 22. And then we developed a survey, which I haven't sent out yet, for budget engagement to try to get people's feelings on the budget. And then we submitted our ACFR and our budget for the GFOA awards for distinguished budget and financial reporting. Human resources revised 3 sections of the employee manual, which was a very large undertaking. It might have been 3 sections, but it was very large sections. Implemented the compensation study and made sure that everyone was at the right level of salary, and then created a volunteer leave so that people would be encouraged to volunteer in our community. The purchasing department, they are going to create a citywide vehicle maintenance repair program and award that hopefully to various shops to expedite services. They went out and got applications for an FBO at the airport. They also worked on the airport gate and AWAS projects, and they worked on towing services for the police department. IT merged our phone systems. We had a couple different versions of the 3CX phone system, and they merged them all into one, and now that's all functioning properly. And then they increased the server capacity to store body cam footage for the police department, and then they worked on the 911 system to try to work with those radio issues that they had been having in past years. I figure you can read it. I'm not going to say each one exactly. So the Economic Development Department, they obtained the Smith Travel Research subscription for the hoteliers. It's a fun word to say. to allow them to look up data and like instant data, so they can see what hotel rooms are available, what the price ranges are for all the hoteliers in town, and it also helps with marketing and tourism. They assisted the Historic Preservation Commission with a video of the historic tour and helped get that out on the website and sell tickets to that tour. They developed videos to promote Cottonwood and did use blushing cactus photography to get some really nice professional photos of Cottonwood. They maximized the opportunity to advertise with the Destination Marketing Organization and the Office of Tourism, and just created opportunities for travel writers to come here and promote Cottonwood. They launched outdoor billboards, and we made sure to really push the "You are welcome here" slogan in our advertisements for tourism. So the court worked through the COVID-19 pandemic and kept having in-court appearances. They did one-on-one, and that was a task to try to keep everyone going in and out with the COVID pandemic. And they upgraded their security measures, and they added payment methods so that people could pay online or in any other process, so that they made sure that those payments were coming in and it was easily accessible. And they also recruited and trained a court volunteer. The legal department.
Whoa. Where's the picture?
No, next slide. That picture.
I don't have any pictures of Steve.
Steve, that's a problem. We gotta.
And is this your last accomplishments presentation, or maybe? You'll have to send a picture and we'll put it on there anyway.
Unless y'all consider leaving an accomplishment.
We could put a picture of you leaving.
My better side?
Yeah. So the legal department negotiated the purchase of the future city hall, and also worked with the Verde Valley Homeless Coalition on their grant funding and making sure that all of the agreements were in place for that, so that they could get the CDBG grant and the pass-through for a transitional housing. And then he also assisted, legal department, it is one person, he assisted with the PSPRS unfunded liability bonding. Community development. Community development created a new sub-planning area for the Old Town Cottonwood area to allow for residents to opt into modified development to speed development along and to accommodate smaller lot sizes. Streamlined and provided opportunities for development by changing zoning ordinances, amending. Developed and sent a letter about the dark sky requirements in the business registration so that all businesses know about what those requirements are. And then completed the Riverfront Park Trail and worked on the Blowout Trail, and published and printed bike trail maps and added 20 trail wayfinding signs. Ordinance enforcement provided a most frequently asked questions area on the website that talks about animal control and ordinance enforcement codes, so that if you are curious, you can go look up and see if maybe that's an issue somebody else has dealt with. They also created the web page as a whole to just inform citizens about ordinance enforcement. Engineering and public works. They added infrastructure by awarding the contract for the First Street sidewalk, which isn't done yet, but will be. And then Mingus Avenue from 8th Street to Main, which we are all happy will be completed this year. And then bid and completed budget for pavement preservations, and also did a capital improvement plan for sidewalks and pavement preservation priorities, which was brought to you a couple weeks ago. Building and parks maintenance converted over 40 fixtures to LED, maintaining efficiencies in electricity, and then also did HVAC training for their employees so that they could work on our HVAC systems. And I think that's my favorite We Are Cottonwood picture. You can't really see it, it's because you got them all in a picture, and that doesn't happen very often. The police department got an upgraded server for their body-worn cameras to make sure that all the film was stored in those servers, and then communicated with citizens in the Outreach Service Officer program, and installed the license plate readers throughout town to help with crime investigations. Communications added 2 new subscribers to our regional communications center, the Clarkdale Police Department and Jerome Police Departments, and then standardized burn permits and developed a website for application for the burn permits for the area, for the Verde Valley area. And then worked with IT and police and fire to develop and improve their technology. The fire department provided, fire and medical department, gotta say it right, provided 2 FireWise programs for citizens and provided CPR and first aid courses, and supported the COVID recovery by providing testing and assisting with the vaccination clinics that they had here in town. Parks and Recreation and Youth Center and Pool, they always get lumped together, added the first new playground equipment at the kids park this year, and also did a community build day with the community to make sure that they had involvement in that park build. And then they are adding a wine event to coincide with our Heart of the Arizona Wine Country slogan. And they increased the use of trails and pools by providing services, and they also helped with the map of the trails here in town. Recreation Center. Reduced energy usage by working with the IT department to have a seasonal light schedule so that the lights aren't on when they're not needed. And then they standardized procedures for the facility, and also worked with a couple local food trucks to rent out the kitchen as a commissary kitchen. Streets and street construction. They crack sealed streets and prep for pavement preservation, and then they have developed a street sweeping schedule to make sure that they're hitting all the streets in town. The transit system began a feasibility study on a wine line to promote our tagline, the Heart of the Arizona Wine Country, and then we are getting ready to submit for the 5311 program grant funding, which will cover 2 years, 23 and 24, and implemented the online purchasing of transit passes with the assistance of the finance department. The airport will complete the AWAS that was grant funded by ADOT, and we'll work on the new FBO agreement after we've received those applications, and installed security cameras and a new security gate so that the airport is more secure. So the library opened a digital media lab for graphic design and podcasting and media creations. Started the Culture Pass program for free exploration of Arizona museums and science centers. And this last year, they eliminated their late fees and any past due fees that were on the books. So you're in luck if you had late fees. So utilities and water, utilities, the water department. This is another good picture. You can't see, it's not very big. They had a lot of accomplishments that couldn't fit on the page, and they have a huge structure. So it was kind of hard to fit it all, but you don't very often get all the guys at the water and wastewater departments to stand for a picture either, so it was kind of nice to see that. They completed their utility audit, which you just heard about. And then they updated arsenic at the arsenic systems at 4 wells. And then they have started the process of replacing all the meters with remote read meters instead of manual read meters. And then they created a certification program to incentivize employees to obtain advanced certifications, which is helping with our staffing issues. Right, Tom? And the wastewater department has assessed the blower at Mingus plant for repair and replacement, did acoustic scanning of the wastewater system, installed a new partial flume. Is that how you say it? Partial? And then did a feasibility study of Mingus plant becoming a DPR or direct potable reuse plant. And that is all I have for you, except for to tell you that we still have a lot of budget left and that this is just the beginning. We will be back in March to do goals for fiscal year 23, and then starting in April, we start talking with the departments in March about their base budgets and what they think they're going to need, and then we'll be back in April with some numbers and a proposed budget, or May, with the tentative in June and the adoption in July.
Mr. Mayor, if I can add before you guys ask questions, and please do ask questions. This new format is great in that it shortens it, makes it concise, and we save a lot of time not having 15 departments up here presenting, but it's a little bit also sad because there's a lot of accomplishments in the city. There's a lot of hard work going on and a lot of good things happening for our community. And so as the city manager, I feel fortunate to have this team behind me getting stuff done. And no one works alone. I was just thinking about the airport and that gate. Jeff helped with that. The other Jeff helped with it. Public Works had to go out and do some work. The AWAS is Public Works and the airport. Everybody's working together, and it's just a wonderful team. They're making our community safer. They're making it more responsive. And it's over the next couple of years, it's going to get even better as we begin adding some more park infrastructure and working on our roads and sidewalks. But couldn't be prouder of this team and the work that they're doing, aligning to your strategic plan. I just very happy with this team and thankful for the work that they put in.
And I will note that we only allow them to give us 4 accomplishments and 4 goals because there's only so much room in the budget document. So they are limited. So they try to give you their best, the best ones, the ones that they're really proud of. And a lot of it is a team effort. As you will see when you look at the accomplishments, a lot of them are similar. They carry over from department to department because we all work together to make sure that those things get done in a timely manner and on budget.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I'm so pleased that we meet annually to go over the plan, strategic plan, but that you incorporate it into everything the staff does on our citizens' behalf. So thank you for that. Yeah. Council, do we have any specific questions about any of the? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
If they do make you look good. On one instance, it looked like we had contracted with an FBO.
So if I can, we have finished the RFP process and we have selected an FBO. We're in final negotiations with that FBO. So we haven't come to an agreement yet. We're still working through those details. Both Mr. Cook and Mr. Tripp are working on the contract, and then we will begin negotiations. If those negotiations fail, then we have a second applicant that we could begin negotiating with, but we've picked our top pick. It's a local company out of Sedona that we're working with, and hopefully we'll be able to come to agreement. We're not arguing yet. We're just still working through the actual contract. We've made several changes from the previous one, so we're hopeful that that'll come to fruition. So partial done, but we haven't finished the actual contract. Of course, that'll come to council.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else, council? Is there an accessible document for the public? I know in the years past we've put together a flashy brochure, I guess, if you will, of the strategic plan. Is there something like that?
The strategic plan is available on the city's website.
Okay.
And our budget document is also out there on the city website on the finance page. And it has the goals for fiscal year 22, the year we're in.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we haven't created our goals for next year or created the fiscal year 23 budget document that has that. But this presentation will also be on the website.
Okay.
Starting tomorrow.
Okay.
On the finance page.
Okay. And things will have been updated from this last strategic plan? Great. Super.
And if I can add, Mr. Mayor, next week, we're reviewing the general plan update, the yearly general plan update. And per council's direction last year, it's pretty robust in the update. So if there's 52 pages, you might want to take a look at that ahead of time and see if we hit the mark. Well, that'll also be available to the public, and it really showcases the work that's been done towards implementing both the general plan and really the strategic plan as well.
Okay.
You know, the strategic plan is our day-to-day, our annual work, which is connected to the general plan in many places. And so you'll see that connection in the council report for next week. And then, of course, once council approves it, it'll be online.
Okay. Great.
2 quick questions for you. Keyword quick, we'll see. We are on target for the strategic plan, and is there anything that's giving you heartburn at this point?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Wilden, no, not really. We are aligned. So I get heartburn. I can think about a couple things, but I'm not going to go through it right now. But probably staffing, and it's not a lack of council support. If you own a business right now and you have employees, you know how hard it is to attract and retain, qualified employees. So probably we have a couple significant vacancies that we're going to have to regroup on and figure out how to recruit for our transit drivers, our bus drivers actually. So they're opening up in Sedona, that trail bus system, and doing some stuff. They're paying $20 compared to our 17.
Yeah, $3.
Yeah, so they're paying $3 an hour more than we are, and so we're losing some drivers to that organization. We have recruited 4 times for our transit manager position and have struck out. Our deputy utility manager position, we struck out, and we are at 0 applicants currently. There's just a couple positions like that have me a little worried about what we're going to be able to do to attract and find those people, but we'll figure it out. It's kind of interesting. For the first time in my career, I can actually say police department is one of the most complete departments. We actually started this week with one of the overfilled, the unbudgeted positions that council authorized. So we're at a normal 100% plus 1. And hopefully by the end of this fiscal year, we'll have both of those positions filled. And then we'll budget them in next year's budget. It's because of the vacancies through the year, it's not been an issue budget-wise this year for that department. But this is the first time in a long time that I've had a police department have fully staffed for police officers, so we're excited about that. Always use more communication specialists in our dispatch center, but really transit and utilities are probably my biggest heartburns right now with staffing.
Was there one other question, or was that?
No, that was those 2.
Oh, okay. Got it. All right. So no, he has no concerns. That's what I heard. That's my takeaway.
We are on task for that strategic plan. He has no concerns about that.
That is 100% correct. Our finances are in good. We've set the reserves as council has asked us to do. We're beginning budget discussions here in a few weeks. I think that we'll be able to hit the rest of what council talked about at the last retreat with infrastructure. That's probably what you didn't ask about excited, but I'm most excited that I think that because of the council action over the last 3 years and how well the economy is doing in Cottonwood, we're going to be able to improve our roads. We're going to be able to improve our park system, and I'm very excited about those opportunities.
Promises, Ron.
Yeah, she doesn't let me say those things, so I didn't ask.
All right. Well, this is great. Thank you for the update. If there's nothing else, I would go ahead and motion to adjourn. Second. Okay, Mayor made the motion. Councilmember Henry seconded it. All in favor? Aye. Aye. We're adjourned.